I'm sitting here today with Takima Howze. We're setting at Safe House International, and Safe House is an incredible ministry to the homeless and marginalized here in Atlanta, Georgia. And Takima is a staff member here. She's the author of 5 books. She's a graduate of Plattsburgh State University and formerly homeless. So Takima, please introduce yourselves to the members and friends back at Bethany Community Church.
Well, hello everyone. I'm so glad to be sitting here with Pastor Philip. And my name, like he said, my name is Takima Howze. I'm originally, from the Bronx, New York, and I currently reside here in Atlanta, Georgia. I moved here in September of 2017 with my 8-year-old daughter, and we are living now in a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom apartment in the East Point area of Atlanta, Georgia.
Well, Takima, I saw a quote this morning that said this: "Step into my shoes and walk the life I'm living. And if you get as far as I am, just maybe you will see how strong I really am." That's you. And as Christ followers, we know it illustrates how strong Christ is as well. Right?
Yes, absolutely.
So, I know it's difficult, but in a couple of minutes, capture your journey or part of your journey for the folks back at home, back at my home.
Okay. So, originally I was, like I said, I was born and raised in the Bronx, New York. My birth mom was a drug addict, unfortunately. And at the age of 6, I was placed into foster care, adopted at the age of 7. My adopted mom and my adopted family, they're amazing people. But there was always that part of me that felt like I didn't fit or I didn't belong. So the journey through my teenage and adolescent years was a little rough. And at the age of 18, when I was grown, I decided to move out and kind of like live my own life. At that time, it was very, very interesting. I led a really promiscuous lifestyle, looking for something that can only be found in Christ. Now I know can only be found in Christ. And so at 19, I kind of humbled myself and asked to go back home to my adopted mom. I did that for about 5 months, and then after that, she was like, "This is not going to work." So again, I was homeless before I turned 20, and at that point, I did not go back home, and so I roughed it out in New York, living from place to place, home to home. And then I eventually found myself at a youth residence. I lived there for about a year and a half. I went away to college, didn't have that much financial support from my family, so I had to file independent, so I was a homeless college student. And then I graduated, still don't have a place of my own. I lived with my birth mom for about 5 months, and then I ended up getting a job. I roommated for a little while, and then I eventually moved into my own place after I had my daughter, and that was a little rough. We almost lost our apartment once, and that's when I decided I wanted something different. Moved to Atlanta, only to be on couches again. So it's been an interesting journey, but I can now say that we are comfortable, we're stable in a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom apartment. It's been quite a journey, but I'm grateful because if it had not been for God's grace, I probably wouldn't be here. So
That's great. That's great. Now, here's what I know about you here. I know you're doing an amazing job, as everybody tells me.
What? No.
And I know you've been instrumental in one of the main players in your career development program for the people who come here. And we know the homeless population in America is just growing and becoming an increasing problem. And what I love about what you're doing here is, yes, you're feeding the homeless, you're clothing them, but you're also helping them get back to where they belong. You're helping them to get jobs and to get housing. And I know you have been instrumental in seeing over 40 people this year, over 40 people get housing and a job. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, as the program assistant here, I assist Pastor Joe and Phyllis Hughes, who's the program manager for the career development program. So my role is basically being an anchor for the program. I'm on the administrative side. However, I still work very closely with the clients that we have. And basically, what I help them to do is to understand, one, that they don't have to act like their situation. They don't have to carry themselves as they are going through a period of homelessness. One thing here, we don't like to say that we work with homeless people, because no, people are not homeless. You experience homelessness, right? No, it's fine. And so, but that's a mentality that they come in with. So we try to retrain them. We help them to renew their mind in that way. So being that I have experienced basically the same thing they are experiencing now, I can speak to the end result. As long as you put in the work, and as long as you allow your faith to work with the work that you put in to not be in that situation anymore. So my role is basically encouraging them, making sure that they have everything that they need. If they find themselves slipping back, I help them to come out of that with coaching, counseling, things of that nature. But also just letting them know that this is not a permanent situation. This is only temporary. And I think a lot of times when you find yourself in a situation or a trying time, you tend to feel like it's never going to end. You're never going to get out of it. And that's simply not the case. As long as you have support, you have your faith, and you believe that there's better for you, there will be work involved, but there is a better situation. So that's pretty much what I do and how I work with the clients in the CDP program.
I think that's very good. I think the point you just made, that we get feeling stuck in these situations, and we think it's pervasive, there's no hope, and we think it's permanent.
Yes.
and God is here to tell us no. Defeat and failure is always temporary with God. Mm-hmm. Amen?
Absolutely.
So what part of your relationship, or what about your faith, your relationship with God in Christ, helped you through those years of wandering and confusion and failure to get to where you are today?
That is an excellent question. I can give one specific story that would pretty much sum it up.
Okay.
There was one day when I had to pick up my daughter from daycare, and I had a fee that I had to pay, and the fee was about $350, and I didn't have that at the time. Literally, I did not have it, and I had to go to work. And so they were like, well, you have to pay this balance, and I said by Friday, and I didn't get paid until the next week. And child support can either come or not come. I'm gonna just leave it at that. And so I said, and I remember being on the train, and I said, okay, I have money set aside for my rent. I can pay that with the little bit of money that I had set aside for my rent. Or I said, God, I literally was on the train, and I typed the prayer in my phone, and I said, God, you know what I need. And I was in tears, like, God, I don't know what I'm gonna do. She has to go to school. I have to work. I need this money by Friday. And I didn't want to ask anyone, because, and I said, well, God, this is what I need. And I said, your word says that, you shall supply all of my need according to your riches and glory. I don't have the riches, you do. So I need it, And I was strongly, like, I feel like I've never prayed a prayer like that in faith, ever. By 6 o'clock that evening, I know it was the Holy Spirit, said, check your card on the child support card. And in my mind, I'm like, I was checking that thing religiously. And I was like, I know there's no money on here. I said, okay, Holy Spirit, if you say listen, I will check it. I checked it, and it was $375 on there by 6 o'clock. And I was like, all I could do was cry, because in that moment, God reminded me, one, of who I am. Two, reminded me that as long as I stay faithful in understanding who He is as my Father, and understanding that His word can return to Him void, all I have to do is ask according to His will, and His will is to provide all of my needs according to His riches and glory, then I will never have to worry about anything. And that has been the theme of my entire life. If I ask, when I ask, because I ask, God is going to provide. He knows what I need. It doesn't even matter how much work I do. If he knows I need it, he's going to provide it. So that has carried me through every situation that either I have put myself in, because sometimes we do that, or that I find myself in. I know that God will provide for me, no matter what. And that is how my faith has carried me.
And you know, Takima, I think sometimes as we advocate for people who truly are victims, we can forget that the God factor.
Yes, absolutely.
that yes, we need people to come through and agencies to come through. That's great, but God comes through even when they don't.
Yeah.
I think that's very important.
I've seen that.
Yes. In closing, do you have any parting advice for people who need to move from where they are to where they belong?
It's interesting. I just wrote about this yesterday because I'm also a freelance writer. But one thing I would say is that when you are in a situation or you find yourself stuck, because no one is really stuck, it's how you see yourself. You can see yourself as, I can't move, or I can only move this much. But if you start off here and you say, okay, I can only do 2 steps, and you do 2 steps, you're not where you were before. And then if you say, okay, I can only move 2 steps, and you move then, and then you're 4 steps ahead now. And if you continue to move 2 steps, if that's all you can do, you have reached 20. And so that's my parting words of, when you find yourself stuck or in a situation, what can you do? Like when God asked Moses, what's in your hand? Moses was like, I can't, but God reminded him what's in his hand. And if I have a little bit of time, there's a movie, it's a football movie, it's a faith-based movie, I can't think of the name right now, but the boy was a football player, and he had to go to the 20-yard line, but his coach wanted him to do it with his teammate on his back, and he had to literally like on the ground. And so he was going, and then he was like, and he had to go blindfolded. And he got to 10 yards, and he was like, I can't go no more. And his coach was like, you can do it. You only got 5 more. And he just kept going. He was like, I'm tired, my arms are weak. I can't do it, I'm tired. He's heavy, I'm tired. And when he kept saying he couldn't, but he kept moving. And he went 5 yards after the 20-yard line. And his coach told him to take the blindfold on, and he saw how far he made it. And a lot of times when we are burdened down by life, and when we're in a situation and it's heavy on us and we feel like we can't go, if you go that extra mile, you will get so much further than you think. You just have to change your mindset and believe that you can get there before you actually feed through.
Well, it's just so important. You mentioned earlier that you, in one of your books, you used the acronym for BRAVE. I'd like to share that with the folks before we end.
Okay, so I wrote a book, and it's called The Brave Life: What to Do When Life Knocks the Faith Out of You. And BRAVE is actually my lifestyle brand, and it stands for being bold, resilient, authentic, victorious, and empowered.
That's a good word to close on.
Yes.
Right there. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
No problem.
God bless you.
No problem.
And I'd just like to add that superb camera work by Pastor Joe.